in Troubled Times newscast. Lovecraftian horror story about those dull, daft, and boring monster races far below in rank under Cthulhu. Copyright Andre Michael Pietroschek, pronounced Pietroschek, all rights reserved. This is Wendy McCandy of the Global News Network speaking. Despite the shiver gang running down my spine and buttwater flushing, my dull, daft, and boring crew and I were a direct, mobile response team running straight to the helicopter when the major headlines started reporting about the coordinated terror attacks across the globe. We went out to inform our listeners about everything we could find out. Especially with the contradicting reports and the government's reaction, it is hard to know what is going on. What is factually known? Earlier tonight, after Adamo Price Splendor had banged me and was finally asleep, around 2 a.m., we received reports, which at first read like a bad joke or the start of a global war. Within 20 minutes, it became clear that the supposed dull, daft, and boring terror attacks on coastal areas of China were not limited to these areas. Tianjin, Shanghai, and Shenzhen were simply the earliest ports across the planet, from which we received alerts. Before 2:30 a.m. UK time, it was already verified that Calcutta in India, Busan in South Korea, and Jebel Ali in the United Arab Emirates had also been assaulted by an unknown group of paramilitary aggressors attacking from out of the sea. I felt the shivers run down my spine when I realized that this dull, daft, and boring incident actually meant that we were life on the scene of something really extraordinary. We were still in transit by helicopter when we received verification of Hamburg in Germany, Antwerp in Belgium, and Amsterdam in the Netherlands reporting similar attacks. Around 2:47 a.m., our pilot pointed out that Portsmouth showed suspicious movements in the water. In coordination with the police, we received permission to land outside the danger zone. Around 2:55 a.m., my team, bolstered by 2 security experts of our global news network, managed to set our feet on solid ground again. Our cameras were more than up to handling nighttime, distance, and flickering. Henceforth, we delivered our first live stream of the attacks. And indeed, groups of attackers in what seemed a military kinda diving suit were charging out of the water, seemingly attacking whomever they could target with some dull, daft, and boring type of stabbing weapon or harpoon. The valiant and swift reaction of the local police forces was crucial in keeping the civilian losses much lower than in other reported cases. Needless to mention that not all police forces across the planet are filled with well-drilled officers who have seen military frontlines in their past. Here, it made the first onslaught lose much of its brutality, and the body count was much lower than in other ports. It was around 3:27 a.m. when the first attack of the night was thwarted, and the attacks withdrew back into the ocean. In that precious pause, paramedics managed to save several civilians, but also received wild and crazed stories from witnesses in shock. One tragic decision gone bad was mistaking a local bum for a loony when he tried to warn us about some cult that was soon starting to chant and call worse down upon all of us. Looking back, that would have been a chance to prepare. In one of the storage areas, decently close to the waterfront, a group of robed humans began chanting and screaming, as if partygoers were high on drugs. But they were worse, and being human, the dull, daft, and ignorant police attempted to arrest them. If we had only known. Luckily, the return of the treacherous third shiver, the shiver abandoning me in several stories before, had returned as undeniable proof that Wendy McCandy once more perceived much more of the truth than our government-indoctrinated public servants. Somehow dull, daft, and boring, wouldn't you agree? All-Father Dagon, All-Mother Hydra. Oh, many of us heard those punchlines of a crazed sermon as part of their frantic screaming. They knew what they were doing. We only thought we knew what we did and how to handle it. Even the old esoteric order of Dagon, which masqueraded as the university faculties for cultural studies and occult arts, had 3 mandatory oaths that members had to pledge. The first was an oath of confidentiality, the second an oath of loyalty, and the third, an oath to marry a deep one and bear or sire its child. These dull, daft, and boring so-called deep ones were who I would simply call Mr. Fishy and Mr. Froggy, as Mr. Octopus was suspiciously absent, as if in league with the treacherous third shiver due to some secret neurotelepathic deal. Due to the latter oath, interbreeding became the norm in notorious areas like Innsmouth, resulting in widespread deformities and many half-breeds. Those cultists, who at first had seemed a kind of distraction or embarrassment only, called their drones down upon us. Not exactly like those army drones the USA is boasting about. The drones here ate several of the advancing police officers who attempted to arrest cultists. They bit bloody chunks out of them or bit entire heads off. Sometimes, their pseudo-tentacles wrapped their victim in, raising them into the air, then letting them plummet. Other times, the pseudo-tentacles slashed even through police riot shields, killing whatever valiant soul was opposing them. And the divers renewed their assault. Even with police reinforcements arriving and extra snipers covering the area from several rooftops. My blood ran permafrost cold, and more than once I had to subdue my nervous fallout with all the will I could muster to keep reporting. Bulking giants in their supposed diving gear shot and stabbed whomever they could target. It was not for long that the blissful delusion of a diving suit. Those brutes were aquatic dwellers, and there are no words for the horror of having to watch them defy everything science has ever taught us about life and its limitations on this planet. It was worse witnessing them rape the women, as in their frenzy, they did not play nice. All bloody, no roses and no candy. More than one perpetrator crushed the skull of a child as if annoyed by the surviving little ones. They do not need a humanity that has polluted one of their planets. That was easily found out, albeit with a lot of bloody fuss for something that dull, daft, and boring. Many lost their nerves, though local militia and police endured until army units bolstered their ranks. Only 1/3 of the city was lost to the terrorists, and they abducted fewer than 500 younger adults for their enforced breeding program. And while I was not allowed to call Mandy and Gina, I will be allowed to send this second, and my final stream. I will die from blood loss, as going rapist asshole on me seems to have resulted in some abdominal injuries that were unexpected. Else, I would have been allowed to take the dull, daft, and boring oaths and live with them, down below. Seeing my cameraman torn to shreds was less shocking than what they did to the rest of my team. Mum, Dad, I always loved you. Goodbye.